Welcome to a strange show today. Actually, it's an awesome show. I have Ken Walter with me, and he's a former CIA operative. We're going to do a series about Ken and his adventures. So I hope you enjoy it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and enjoy. And I really appreciate if you hit that like button. Ken,
Yes.
you have a very interesting life, my friend, don't you?
I do, thank you.
Yeah, okay, so Africa and adventures. I'm going to massacre this name, but is it Bujumbura?
Exactly.
Oh my God, I got it right. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your African life when you moved there and what's happening with it.
Actually, I moved there. I was on my first tour in Bangkok before Lena.
Okay,
And
so before you were
this
married.
is before Lena.
Okay,
And I was fat and happy in Bangkok, just loved working there and stuff. And they came up to me and said, "Well, Ken, we'd like you to take a special assignment to Africa." And I said, "No." I said, "I'm not too fond of that idea." And they said, "No, you'll like it down there." I said, "Okay." So at the end of my tour in Bangkok, I had to go to the States and become a full-fledged State Department officer. I had to go through FSI school and all this stuff in order I could get a completely foolproof, backstopped identity as a State Department officer. So then I went to Africa, and Bujumbura is a small country. It's about the size of Rhode Island. And at that time, they were having genocides going on like they did in Rwanda. Well, Rwanda and Burundi used to be one nation.
Oh, they
used
were?
to be a kingdom,
okay.
the kingdom of Burundi. And so when the king died, everything kind of split up, and the Tutsis took over Burundi, and the Hutus took over Rwanda.
Okay.
So the Tutsis wanted to get rid of the Hutus, so they started killing them. So my first year in Burundi, they killed 150,000 people, and that was something to live through. But anyway, they said,
How did you live through it? I got to ask you that question. How did 150,000 people?
well,
Oh my God.
they weren't targeting expatriates. They were targeting little Hutus, which is too bad. And before I get ahead of myself, the
Yeah.
house that they promised me down there was called
Yeah.
a Villa Mater Ganshof. It had been built under Belgian occupation. It was a beautiful old mansion on top of a red dirt hill, and 14-room mansion.
Okay.
And probably, I don't know how many acres around it, filled with giant cactuses and jackfruit trees and all this stuff. It was very jungly.
Was it beautiful?
It was really nice when it was built, and it had.
You thought, all right.
Yeah, good place for entertaining.
Okay.
So, circular dirt driveway and everything,
Wow.
and that was probably the cream of the crop for Burundi. It was because
So you were better than the president, huh?
not quite, but just nearly.
Close, huh?
My house was a little bit better than the ambassador's.
Okay, cool.
So the embassy there consisted, it was a small embassy, and within that embassy we had a very small, what they call a station. When you operate out of an embassy in an embassy, it's called a station where the CIA works, and there was only
Okay.
a few of us there. And my boss' house wasn't quite as nice, but I needed this particular location because it was strategic in what we were going to do.
Okay.
And so that was kind of neat.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they normally, when you want to admit to having a little bit of influence through my chief of station and the agency to get
Yeah.
that house, but when you work overseas, either for the agency or the State Department or any big corporation, they give you free housing, and your free
Is
housing.
it always that nice?
Yes. No.
I was going to say,
No.
sign me up.
I've lucked out in to get some pretty neat houses.
Yeah.
But at any rate, we
So
needed
how
that
big
for
was the house?
It was about 14 rooms, and in back was a concrete thing that was at once used for stables, and then pretty soon the Africans wanted to live back there and protect it. I hid a lot of the Hutus back in these concrete
So
quarters.
they worked for you?
Well, they
Helped you?
No, they were hiding from the Tutsis so they wouldn't be killed back there because they weren't supposed to come on, quote, embassy grounds.
Okay.
So anyway, one of our goals down there, besides our main goal of acquiring information, was to help these Hutus escape into Rwanda, which was their sanctuary place at that time.
Okay.
So
Ken, what year was that?
1971 through 74 and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was an interesting part.
Yeah.
In addition to having a nice house for entertaining, we had a boat that I was assigned. It was a hand-down type CIA boat. It was a 16-foot Boston whaler with twin 650 Mercs on the back, which was pretty fast.
You really were up there, weren't you?
No. I was just unfortunate enough to have to run the escape, that was called the E&E boat.
Oh.
Escape and evasion boat.
So like Miami Vice and that cool stuff, we watch all those movies. Were you kind of like similar to that?
Maybe. I don't think I saw
so.
too many of those. But anyway, the boat was the few people we had in our station, in case they started killing the Mzungu, the white people, the expatriates, we were supposed to all assemble down at this little thing called the yacht club,
Okay.
L'Entente Sportif. And
What was it called? One more time?
L'Entente Sportif.
L'Entente Sportif.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, that sounds
It
good.
used to be like a sports club
Okay.
back when the Belgians were in power. But anyway,
Belgians were in power.
Yeah, it was a Belgian colony in the old days.
In
until
Africa?
1965, yeah.
Oh,
And then
okay.
what they called in 1965, Uhuru means freedom broke out in all these little occupied African nations, and they got freedom.
Okay.
And that's when everything started getting haywire, because they were all, tribalism is the strongest thing in the world, and people's tribes override a lot of things. So
They really believe in it then. Well, your house, explain the location. Where exactly
Okay.
was the location of this house?
It-
I want to know more.
It
I'm
was
sure
out
our
in,
audience
out in the
does.
jungle. It was kind of one road leading up to it, and in back of the house was a huge canyon. It was just a beautiful
Wow.
red dirt canyon going down nowhere, and all kinds of strange trees and growth and stuff. And
Yeah.
the cactus in front, the spiders would put in webs that were like string. They were that big.
Really?
And so you could walk into it and shake it, and you'd see these big things coming down to see what they caught. And so those spiders were pretty weird.
This was the big time, huh?
Yeah, they thought they got a good one that time. But so we had that. We had 3 types of mamba snakes there.
Oh my God.
We had we had black mambas, which were very, very aggressive and poisonous. Then we had green mambas, which were not as aggressive, but they were just as poisonous, but they were green. And then we had Johnson mambas, which were they looked pretty much, but they were non-venomous and they didn't hurt you, but you could see if they were poisonous, they'd have a scale right behind their eye if you got close enough to notice.
I would not be that close, I can tell you right now. No, I see
But you
them
had to be
run.
careful
Yeah.
of these little snakes because
Were
they're
they
a little
all over?
skinny. No, they were in trees and on the vines. I had grapevines growing on the side of my house, and they would be in there and stuff. So the snakes, I only knew a couple people got bitten by snakes down there during my time. They also had puff adders.
What's that?
Puff adder is a big, stubby-looking snake that is kind of a brownish yellowish color, and they're very slow. But if you sat down and you think it's a stick beside you, it might be an adder. And a puff adder's venom is neurotoxic, so if it bites you, you don't have much time because it just closes your system down and you start bleeding from all sorts of places. So puff adders.
Did you know what you were getting into when you agreed to this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of. I was more worried about the people than the snakes and stuff because I grew up in Texas and rattlesnakes and Gila monsters
yeah,
and all this stuff
yeah.
was just kind of like a household thing.
Yeah.
So the snakes things and let's get back to the little L'Entente Sportif
Yeah, that's what
where
I'm
we
here
had the
about
boat
that.
tied up.
Yeah.
If people started getting killed or they started attacking, they were supposed to come down to the boat
Yeah.
at a specific time. You couldn't take any pets, but you could take a bag with your passport and money or whatever you had, and we'd get in a boat and we'd go flying across the northern tip of Lake Tanganyika to a place in Zaire called Uvira, Vera's, I looked on the Google the other day, it's built all up. Bujumbura's built up. But in those days, it was just a little African village.
Wow.
But that was in Zaire, so we would escape to there, and I would have contact with the people in Europe and also Africa that would meet us there and take us out of country or something. So
Wow.
that was escape and evasion boat. So to test it, to make sure it would still be good and everything, I would sometimes make a run across the lake by myself until I got close enough that I could see their little gunboats they had over there, and then I would turn around and race back, which wasn't that far. It's about a 25-minute, 30-minute
Well, it's good to know where your enemy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that minor
they were
detail.
they were going to be our saviors
Yeah.
if we could get through the intrusion points.
Yeah.
So it's if you could drive to Avira, and it was about a 35-minute car ride, or you could take across the boat.
It's quicker. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's nobody to get you there.
Wow.
But
Well, how long did you live there?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Did it seem like 3 years, or did it seem like 10?
Well, the first 2 years were pretty tough with all the stuff going on and being nervous about things. And so I opted to stay a third year, and they let me because it was peaceful, and I could go exploring the country and go see what I missed because of not being able to leave.
How'd you get your food?
Well, that's a good question.
I'm curious about that. How did he eat?
There weren't a lot of grocery stores. There were like 2 grocery stores in Bujumbura, and a Greek store and another, I think it was Belgian run.
Uh-huh.
But to bring in all of our goods, there was a way of bringing in European food by boat from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and it would come up Lake Tanganyika to Burundi.
Okay.
And,
I've been to Tanzania before.
Yeah, that's a cool place.
Yeah. So that's how they brought the food?
Yeah, we'd bring in our food, order from Denmark, and we'd bring in booze and food and cans and stuff like that.
Okay.
And nearly every time, half of our booze would be stolen, but that was just a tax, I guess. So we would order more booze.
Or everybody was a little more happier, you know?
Yeah, keep them happy.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of little, as I mentioned, little stores that sold things like flour and basics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But and there was one good restaurant at the yacht club.
Uh-huh.
It was called Chez Roger.
Okay.
And a Belgian ran that, and he could cook some really good steaks. He would get the stuff flown in.
So that's where you went out for fancy time?
Yeah. That was you go to Chez Roger for a fancy meal.
Yeah.
He'd make steak à poivre, which was just fantastic.
Ooh, now, see, that's good.
Yeah. So they speak. By the way, the main language in Burundi is French and Swahili, or Kiswahili. So that's where I learned my French, was in Africa, which was pretty bad French, but I could talk to them.
Wow. Well, were you and other foreigners in danger there?
Yeah, in a way we were, because we never knew what was going on. And we also were being sometimes attacked by groups from Zaire who were either part of the Simbas or else they were just thieves and murderers. And they would come in sometimes and target big houses or foreigners' houses because they knew that's where the money was. So we had in each house had a zamu or two. A zamu was a tall, most of the time they were Tutsis where we were, and they would have a spear made of a piece of wrought iron, which you would normally use in construction for a fence or a house or something like that, and they would sharpen the tips, and then they had their spear. They didn't have any special spears with them.
Did you teach him how to?
Yeah. When I found out that most of them couldn't throw, we would have on Saturday mornings a fallout, and all of the Zamu and even my house boys and stuff and cook would come out, and I had a garden planted surrounded by banana trees.
Okay.
And in the garden I was growing radishes and all kinds of things to make my kimchi. And so.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I would order the kimchi packages or people would bring them to me from California, packages. But anyway, for throwing spears, they would throw them at a banana tree, which had banana trees all around the forest, the garden. And so to show them how to do it, I lucked out. The first time I threw the spear, and it went straight into the banana tree. Perfect. And they thought, well, if Bwana can do this, so can we. So they just threw and threw and threw.
Till they got it right.
Well, until they tilled up my garden, because most of them missed. So it was a good way to till the garden up.
So there you go. You had them doing double shifts, double duty.
Yeah. So the Zamus were sometimes mistreated by the other expats down there. If they caught them sleeping, they would pick them up and throw them, or they would humiliate him and stuff like that. And I thought, that's not a way to win any friends.
No.
A guy's going to warn me if someone's coming, and maybe hurt me.
Yeah.
So I was nicer to them. When they would come, I would drive up maybe at night or something, and they would be asleep. I would wake them up, and I'd pull out a wad of Burundi francs, money, and I would say, "This could have been yours, but you were sleeping." So then they would stay awake, waiting for that little bit of money. And the average salary in Burundi was like $65 a year.
A year.
Yeah, and they make like pennies a day in their normal lives of collecting this and that.
What did you say the currency is? I'm curious. There's a
Oh,
reason I'm asking this.
Burundi franc.
Okay, now I've been to Africa before. The rand, I think it is what they have
In
now.
South Africa.
Okay, it's only South Africa is the
Yeah.
rand. So different parts of Africa has what different currencies.
Exactly. They're all little countries. Most of the currencies, though, in Africa are printed in France by the Thomas de la Rue Company.
Really?
And they put the king's pictures or all these different animal pictures
Yeah.
on there. It's kind of
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah.
But the Burundi francs were pretty dirty because they were handled by people who were just in the field and so on
Yeah.
like that. So,
Would you say one more time? $65 a year?
yeah.
Wow. Pennies a day, huh?
Yeah. So the Burundis who worked for the Americans or other Germans or anyone else down there got paid pretty well. There was French down there, Germans, Belgians, Danes, Italians.
When you were there.
Yes.
So
They
you
were
were,
in their diplomatic corps.
okay, you were there, what did you say, 3.5 years?
Yeah, about a little over
3 years? Wow. Well, was that your first assignment, Ken?
No, it was my second. My first assignment was in Bangkok. The first.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot he was fat and happy there. That was before Lena, huh?
Right. And she we probably would have never been married or even known each other if she had known me in Africa. I was a real monster over there myself. I weighed about 220, 230.
No, I don't believe that,
I
really.
had a big beard. I was a real African man. But getting back to food, if you wanted to have fresh meat,
Yeah.
we would go out and shoot a bush buck or a wild pig or something like that. And we had one guy who was a very good butcher in town, and he would make it presentable and
Yeah.
package it for you.
And then what, you'd freeze it and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So you
that's
were
just
able
it.
to eat off of that and what, feed your people that were there also?
Yeah, but the electricity was not that stable there, so we all had to have generators that
Yeah.
would run our refrigeration and stuff.
Okay.
We didn't need air conditioners. It was just a beautiful climate there. Not too
Okay.
hot, not too cold, kind of equatorial.
Okay, Ken, I've got a question for
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Where, I know I'm going to mess this up. It's Bujumbura?
Bujumbura.
Okay, I was in Tanzania, so I have been to Africa, so I understand what he's talking about. But how far is that from, say, Tanzania, where I was at? Is it
From where?
Tanzania?
Oh, Tanzania? No. Well, Tanganyika is 425 miles long.
Okay,
It's the second largest lake next to Baikal in Russia.
okay,
It has a large percentage of the fresh water. It's such a long lake, so Tanzania is right at the southern end of the lake,
okay.
and so it's about probably a good nearly 400 miles.
400? Okay.
Yeah,
So the temperature would be pretty much similar
Yeah, it's
then,
pretty-
correct?
pretty nice. Yeah,
Yeah, it was nice when I was there. I really enjoyed it. I was
yeah.
there.
Tanzania is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
That's at sea level. I went from sea level Tanzania up to the top of what they call Kilimanjaro,
Yeah, Mount Kilimanjaro.
which is 19,348 feet.
Wow.
and back down in a little over 5 days.
So while you were there, what happened? I'm sure our audience wants to know. I want to know, were you scared a lot? Was there attacks? Was there, you said 150,000 people had gotten killed, right?
Yeah, that was a genocide.
How did you not, how'd you stay out of the fray is what I'm asking.
Well, they could have taken out all kinds of people. They were so concentrated on genocide, killing the Hutus, that they didn't mess with anybody else. And this embassy I worked at was probably one of the few in the world that didn't have Marine Guards at the entrance.
Wow.
We had nothing at the entrance.
Oh my God.
And there were no weapons. Well, myself and a few others had our own weapons there. I'll tell you an interesting story. There was a mercenary.
I'll tell you what, hold that thought for 1 minute. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Diamond Travel, your getaway to unparalleled luxury cruises and unforgettable safari experiences.
Hi, I'm Suzy Saline Lipsky, founder of Diamond Travel. At Diamond Travel, we redefine luxury travel with curated experiences tailored just for you.
Dive into a world of sophistication with our luxury cruises, setting the bar for elegance and top-notch service. Sail through the crystal clear waters and let us redefine your notion of opulent relaxation. For those seeking adventure, our tailor-made safaris promise an immersive experience like no other.
Call today while there's still space available. Reservations are filling up fast for this fun-filled experience at sea. Dial 702-778-5037 now and let the waves carry you to a world of unmatched wonder. Bon voyage! Wow. I hope you're as fascinated with this as I am. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And we would really appreciate that. Now, Ken, let's get back to your story. I want to hear more.
Right. The lack of Marine Guards was a little bit dangerous because anyone can walk in the embassy, and some are getting visas, some are looking for this and that. So we had a couple of weapons among ourselves and the real State Department people there.
Okay.
Like, some shotguns and sidearms, 9mm and stuff. But one night, this guy I met downtown, he was a mercenary named Mike Hoare.
Mike?
Hoare. H-O-A-R-E.
Okay.
Mike Hoare was very famous. You could look him up.
Yeah.
And he was coming through town. He had been a mercenary in many countries in Africa.
Okay.
And he knew that we didn't have any weapons, and he said, "Ken, how the hell are you going to do if they start coming for you? What are you going to do?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, the best we can." He said, "I'm going to give you something." And I said, "Okay." He gave me an FN machine gun.
Okay.
And a bag full of ammunition that was in various stages of kind of oxidized. So at nights when I had to lock myself in the embassy and monitor the people in town who worked for us, I would sit there and polish the bullets and polish and clean that FN machine gun in case we ever had to use it.
Something happened and you needed it, obviously.
So that's a little side story.
Well, all right. When were you at the embassy? You'd be at your residence during the day, and at night you'd go into the embassy?
No, I went into the embassy too, but the embassies, we didn't have a lot of real work to do there, except for the stuff that we were doing on the side.
Okay.
So we had a little bit of recreation.
Okay, tell us about that.
One of my friends was the brewmaster down there.
Okay.
He made a beer called Primus. Primus was made in different countries down there. It's a very high quality beer. It comes in a liter.
Okay.
The smallest you can get is a liter. And so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I like that. Awesome.
So his name was Jan de Costa, and he was a Belgian.
Jan de Costa.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good name.
And he was a Belgian that actually was a fighter pilot that took his training in San Antonio in the U.S. for the Belgian.
Yay, San Antonio. I was there. I lived there for a while. Yeah.
So when he went back, he also was a chemist. So they assigned him to build the brewery or continue the brewery. And he could, if they were missing some hops or some barley or some rice, he could adjust it to it would taste right. So sometimes he'd call me up and say, Ken, the next brew will be through at 10:30. Can you come down and taste it? And well, yeah, I can sacrifice for that. So we'd go into his office, and he had a big glass vial.
Okay.
And the big copper vats would finish brewing the beer, and they would go through chillers and everything, and then come in emptying in this big test tube, this big vial, and we'd draw off chilled, freshly brewed beer.
Oh,
and that
wow.
was fantastic. So that was one recreation.
Well, that's a good recreation.
You
I
bet.
like that.
Yeah.
I could have did that with you. That would have been fun.
It would have.
Yeah.
So we also had a roulette wheel that somebody got. It was a full-size roulette wheel.
Okay. So Vegas, here we come. You you were a gambler then too, huh?
Yeah, so we would move it around to different people's houses, and the person that had the roulette wheel would be responsible for providing food and drink for the people that were there, invited
Good.
guests. And so we played for Burundi francs, and no one wanted to win, but you know, if you win, you win. So
Yeah.
sometimes you'd win a lot of money, sometimes you wouldn't. But whoever hosted the event could win as much as they want. You know, there was
Yeah.
no limit.
Yeah.
So most of the time, you covered the beer and the drinks and stuff that you had there.
Yeah.
But I knew that the wheel was a little screwed up because black 29 would come up
All the time.
an awful lot. So
Yeah.
I was doubling
Yeah.
all up on the 29. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's just a fun story.
Yeah.
We also had a thing called the Tangerine Circuit. It was movies because there was no TV or anything down there. And so my group, through the State Department, would bring in 16 millimeter current movies, like 2001: A Space Odyssey and all that.
Really?
Well, I don't
Okay.
think that was out then, but all those good types of quality movies.
Yeah.
And we would show them at different people's houses. And that was kind of neat because everyone had a projector, and you'd use a white wall, or some people had a screen.
Yeah.
And we would rotate around, and it was a good way to entertain and get to know other people.
Yeah.
So we had our own movie circuit down there.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Did you have people from the U.S. coming to see you while you were there? I'm kind of curious, you know. See, he opened the door, so I'm going to ask the question.
There's some
are you able
interesting
to talk
stories
about
about
it or
that.
not?
That one of the people that I had to come was my supposed cousin, who was he was a very good. He grew up in China, and he could speak Mandarin and fluently.
Yeah.
And he was the son of missionaries, and he came over for some language qualification stuff. And he was also a martial arts guy, so we'd meet in the front yard sometimes and break tiles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we needed someone that didn't look Oriental, because you might figure that our target was Red Chinese at that time.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so he stayed with us in our house for quite a while. I mean, we had plenty of room there, and had some good times too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he broke his knuckle
Oh, no.
on one of the breaking of the tiles, and that was on a Sunday. We went in on a Monday. We had a Belgian nurse that would take care of people, and he went in and his knuckle was hanging out this side after he hit it.
Oh.
So the only thing I could do before we went in to see the nurse, I put a wooden banana that I got in Thailand
Underneath,
and wrapped it up real well
Yeah.
because it pushed the knuckle back out a little bit.
Yeah.
So she looked at it and said, "We're going to have to put a cast on it." So they did, and of course he couldn't see what we were writing on it that his wife would read when he got back to the States. But that was one visitor. We also had some official visitors.
That's what I'm curious about.
And,
Did they come visit you?
Yeah, and well, for work more or less. But
Yeah.
we had a couple of people come that we had to lay very high quality coaxial cable from my house to a gazebo we built. The gazebo was thatched roof. It was very nice, and it had antennas concealed in it. You couldn't see them because of the plywood that we had in there.
Yeah.
But we needed a very high gain antenna and coaxial cable going to the attic of my main house, which is probably about a 75-foot run. That's a long run for video and audio cables. But anyway,
Oh, yeah.
so we were digging a trench with my houseboy and some other people, And these two visitors from the U.S. went up, drives the ambassador and the number 2, the deputy chief of mission, and says, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're putting in some electricity and some stereo cable because I'm going to have lights and music and stuff down here at the gazebo.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, but they were so curious, they wanted to know why we were doing it. It was kind of strange to do.
Yeah.
But we liked to, and there was a barbecue there, so
Yeah.
we had
So you
some
decided
parties
to trick it out and have a really good.
there. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a good.
Yeah.
It was a good cover for action to have that
Oh,
going down.
yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, some people would come down. There was a couple of scientists would come down that I was friends with working, and we would go out in the lake and drink beer and stuff.
So that was your second assignment. Wow.
Yeah, my second assignment. And then that was probably the most exciting because the third year that I stayed down there, it gave me leisure time to do things like climb Kilimanjaro and go in to see the mountain apes in Zaire and see, climbed a volcano too, Karasimbi volcano, which was a live volcano, by
Wow.
the way. And so climbing on the top of that and then looking over the thing and the crater edge and see down below bubbling lava, and you smell that terrible scent of sulfur.
And you're thinking, just don't get too close. You could
Well,
fall
it sometimes erupts, and throws
Yeah.
stuff up on the top.
Yeah, yeah.
But so we slept on the top of that.
You slept on the top of the volcano.
Yeah, yeah. It's too dark to go back down.
Oh yeah, of course.
You have to sleep there.
Who knew, right?
Yeah, and very macho man. There was a couple other my friends were up there,
Yeah.
Americans, and we brought up MREs, which are military rations in little cans that you heat up, you know.
Yeah.
So we had some coals. So some Africans bring up coals, and we had a little fire going, and the coals were nice and hot. So we'd put our little cans of food
So
on
you had a
there.
little picnic up there.
Yeah,
That's what you're trying to tell me, huh?
yeah. And so we thought, very brave. You know, I picked up while it was boiling in there. Things boil at a lower temperature at higher altitudes. Anyway, I
Yeah.
picked up the can with my bare fingers.
Oh my goodness.
And put it aside to cool. And Africans are watching me, and they go, "Oh, that's cool." Then this guy, the African, puts the coals back in place with his fingers. So just lost
He's
all
good.
my
Yeah,
all my
yeah.
glory of touching a warm can.
Oh my God. Well, you know, it's interesting. I want to hear more about your stories. I really do. But while I have you here, before we
Oh,
say
yeah.
goodbye, tell me what these are all about.
This was probably a tusk from maybe a Vacocher wild boar or something.
Uh-huh.
And this is very old. The missionaries, when they came to Africa, they told them their carvings couldn't have genitalia or anything. So this one does happen to have
Yeah.
something on it.
Yeah.
And these are very, very old. This is a yellowed ivory. This mask
I love that. Yeah.
that Suzy
Yeah.
wore so
Yeah.
elegantly is called black ivory, and I don't know how they got it so dark, but I have a lot of dark ivory too. And these
Wow.
are all these are the tribes in Zaire designate.
That's what that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the tribes have the different features and stuff.
The different marks on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of the Zaire people.
So these
that
are Zaire. Okay. So if somebody
or
saw
back in
that,
those
they'd
days,
know.
the Congo.
Wow.
And then this is what you call the white ivory.
Uh-huh.
It's very thin. Also,
Beautiful.
I have a lot of carved hippo teeth that are pretty nice. This is ivory, though. This is
Yeah.
an ancient yellowed ivory type thing.
That's quite nice also.
I like this one.
I do too. Very nice.
They're so old.
Well, I
But-
bet you have a lot of artifacts, don't you?
Yeah, I've got some very big masks that are made of tortoise with cowrie shells, and some have fur and some have long reeds, and they're still intact.
Okay. Well, you know what? We want to hear from you. So I have a job for my audience. I want you to give me a thumbs up or let me know what you want to hear from Ken and I, because this is an ongoing series, and I hope you'll tune in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And thank you, Ken. I hope
Thank
to
you.
see you again.
We'll talk more.
Okay. Thank you. That's our show for today.
Yeah.